Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of May 18th. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 6:02 now, and I would like to note that members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting by accessing the meeting, which will be live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel, or by contacting the municipal clerk to receive a registration link to join the meeting being held electronically. Members of the public may also attend in person at the Cold Street Community Centre, and we actually have a person here tonight, so it's a nice change of pace. There are no additions to the, there is an additional correspondence submission this evening under item 11, and that has been added to the agenda. I'll ask now if anyone has a pecuniary interest to disclose.
I do, Madam Mayor. 9.5 consent application B6 2022 15025 8 Mile Road.
Thank you. And now we can turn to our delegations tonight. We have a report. Rebecca Zispensovitz is going to come to us to speak about the Middlesex Centre Net Carbon Ready Arena final report. And just wait for her to come
on. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for coming, Rebecca. We're looking forward to your presentation.
All right. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see my presentation?
It's clear and up. Thank you.
Perfect. So good evening, everyone. My name is Rebecca Shepanowski, and I'm a Master's of Environment and Sustainability student at Western University. As part of our consulting class, me and 5 other students partnered with Middlesex Centre to determine strategies for the new Ilderton Arena to be net zero carbon ready. So during my time with you this evening, I will go over what we did for Middlesex Centre. I will identify some of our key learnings from 2 other net zero hockey arenas in North America, the Climate Change Arena in Seattle, Washington, and the Woodstock Union Arena in Woodstock, Vermont. And lastly, I will discuss some of our recommendations for the new Ilderton Arena based on our research of net zero technologies, construction best practices, and best facility operations. So in 2021, Middlesex Centre Council adopted the Middlesex Centre Community Improvement Plan in order to encourage rehabilitation and redevelopment across the municipality. Middlesex Centre is currently upgrading the Community Services Master Plan, which guides the direction for future recreational programming, services, and infrastructure. This plan presents future goals and objectives for the community that impact open space planning, parks, community centers, and arenas for the period of 2022 to 2026. Middlesex Centre is proud to be home of the first net zero fire station in Canada and have embraced green technologies through building retrofits and municipal fleet. As part of the Middlesex Centre Community Improvement Plan, the municipality is interested in continuing with their redevelopment plans with the intent on redeveloping the Ilderton Arena into a net zero carbon arena. The Government of Canada has enacted the Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act of 2021, which outlines Canada's commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Building a net zero hockey arena in Middlesex Centre is a step towards helping Canada to achieve this target. So the plans for the new Ilderton Arena will feature a regulation-sized skating rink with fixed tiered seating for 500 spectators and 100 standing room capacity. The arena will also feature a mezzanine level with a 2-lane walking track and a 120 square meter lounge overlooking the hockey rink. There will also be 6 spacious change rooms, each with washroom facilities. And then a second phase of development will involve the addition of another ice surface and a community center. And then the third phase of construction will consist of a 4-sheet curling rink and a library. This new net zero carbon ready facility will build on the municipality's strategic priorities on an engaged community and sustainable municipal infrastructure. So the US Green Building Council, the International Living Future Institute, and the Canada Green Building Council have developed net zero certification programs that define what net zero energy and what net zero carbon is. There are currently 5 dominant net zero certifications within the industry. So basically, net zero carbon standards reduce and offset the project's carbon emissions and energy from operational energy and occupant transportation with on-site renewable energy, and also demonstrating superior energy efficiency. Energy use in buildings is one of the largest single contributors to the carbon footprint at roughly 40%. Building to net zero standards would help communities significantly reduce their carbon footprint. Building to net zero standards only costs up to 1 to 8% more upfront than traditional buildings built to traditional standards. So making net zero buildings is a lot more obtainable. These higher upfront costs are mainly made up by reducing the operational costs, and studies have actually found that net zero buildings see a 24% increase in annual operating savings and a 91% increase in emission savings. So where my classmates and I came in was in researching the construction and facility operations best practices at existing net zero hockey arenas to see what could be incorporated at the new Ilderton Arena. We also researched other unique and leading edge net zero facilities across North America and Europe to get an idea of emerging net zero technologies. We then researched what net zero technologies are out there, what the best practices for construction are, and then also facility operations best practices for net zero buildings. So we first looked at the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, where the Seattle Kraken NHL team plays. They reused their original roof, which prevented 20,000 tons of concrete and steel from being sent to landfill. And because of this, they had to expand the arena underground to create more seating. They also salvaged the window and curtain wall systems, which saved on materials and lowered the embodied carbon of the building. And in terms of facility operations, the arena is completely powered by renewable energy because they installed solar panels on their roof, and they're also tied to Seattle's carbon neutral grid system. They also use all electric operations, and nothing is heated using natural gas, which greatly reduces their greenhouse gas emissions. The arena also collects rainwater from the roof, which is then filtered and used to resurface the ice. So for the Woodstock Union Arena, this was actually a retrofit project that incorporated system changes and new technologies to support facility operations. Phase 1 of the project included refrigeration upgrades to make it more efficient to cool the rink. Phase 2 of the project included installing a heat recovery system, which recycles heat 70% more effectively, and also installing high efficiency boilers. And then phase 3 included installing renewable energy and a dehumidification system. Solar panel arrays were installed on the building's awnings with the goal of actually over-generating energy to support the surrounding buildings in the community. The building also incorporates a building automation system, which includes computerized controls for refrigeration, HVAC, and lighting, and it also aids in the building being net zero by optimizing its energy use. So based on our research, we determined several recommendations Middlesex Center can incorporate into the new Ilderton Arena. Our recommendations are grouped into technologies, construction, and facility operations. So for technologies, we first recommend incorporating on-site energy production using solar and geothermal energy. Producing on-site energy produces net zero emissions since no fossil fuels are used and therefore no greenhouse gases are produced. By generating your own energy on site, this will lower utility costs as you will not be purchasing energy from the grid. Next is battery storage. Since one of the largest problems with sustainable energy production is that they are very intermittent. So for example, the sun isn't always shining, the wind isn't always blowing, so sometimes you might not always have energy. So with energy storage in batteries, it helps to provide a solution to this problem. Energy storage systems offer many benefits, such as improving energy reliability and resilience, incorporating storage with low carbon generating sources, ensuring a more flexible and robust power grid that can accommodate unplanned outages, and integrating more renewable energy sources to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. We next recommend implementing a rainwater harvesting system. So collecting rainwater helps to reduce water utility costs, since you will be able to reuse the water in the washrooms or other areas of the building rather than purchasing it from the city. And it also helps with stormwater management and reducing floods during extreme precipitation events. It will also ease stress on the local community, as a large amount of water is needed for hockey rinks, and more clean drinking water would then be available for the families of Middlesex Center. So for construction, our first recommendation is installing triple paned windows with a minimum R value of 8 and a heat loss of U 0.25 or lower to construct a tighter building envelope. Constructing a building with multi-paned windows allows for a tighter building envelope, and therefore you'll be able to increase operational efficiency and reduce costs, since not as much heat will be able to escape from the building. We also then recommend building a super insulated thermal bridge free envelope. So net zero buildings must have complete thermal boundary. So while insulation values ranging from R20 to R60 is actually best practice for net zero buildings. And we also recommend using a low global warming potential spray foam insulation during construction, which can drastically lower the embodied carbon emissions within buildings and also keep heat and cool air inside the building, which will help lower energy costs. Next, we recommend maximizing the use of south-facing windows and then installing overhangs or shades on east and west-facing windows. So daylighting can be used to create a pleasant and healthy space for the community, rather than just merely using it to conserve energy. The more accepted practice for passive solar lighting is to actually place about 50% to 60% of windows facing south, and then installing a large percentage of windows towards the south will actually maximize the heat from the sun during the winter, but also then limit the warming effect of sunlight during the summer. And then installing overhangs or shades on the east and west facing windows can allow for building operations staff to limit sunlight during the warmer months, which will aid in the building's cooling system, and then help to make the building more energy efficient as well, since you won't need to rely on your HVAC equipment as much. And then lastly, the recommendations for building operations. The first is implementing a heat recovery system. So in traditional HVAC systems, waste heat is generated from the refrigeration process, and then it's usually released outdoors through externally facing vents. But instead, a heat recovery system takes advantage of this waste heat that's generated, and it captures and stores it to be used then in other parts of the building. This excess heat can instead be used to heat faucets, showers, and also ice resurfacer water. And it can also be used to help melt the snow pit that's generated from the ice cleaning process. We also then recommend to complete commissioning of the HVAC systems once they're installed, just to ensure that they are performing optimally and according to manufacturer specifications. And then we also recommend to then complete recommissioning of that equipment every 3 to 5 years to ensure optimal performance. And failure to sometimes complete recommissioning can lead to drastically lower efficiency, sometimes improper fluid flows, and in the worst case, premature retiring or decommissioning of that equipment. And then similar to the Woodstock Union Arena, we recommend installing a building automation system to automate and optimize building systems such as temperature control, temperature setback during unoccupied times, increasing ventilation when needed, and optimizing equipment startup. And then similar to our homes and commercial buildings, we also recommend installing Energy Star or DLC approved LED lighting, since these lights consume a lot less energy than your compact fluorescent lighting. And we also recommend incorporating either occupancy or motion sensors to automatically turn off lights in areas that are not occupied as much, and also installing photocells for exterior lighting and lighting that's near windows, so the lights only turn on when there's not a sufficient amount of daylight. And lastly, we recommend installing low flow washroom fixtures, since they use half the volume of water in comparison to standard fixtures. And then also installing low flow fixtures not only reduces water waste, but it also optimizes energy efficiency for the building, as less energy is needed to heat the hot water for some of these fixtures. So it will save you money in both water and hydro bills. So we believe that these recommendations will greatly help the Ilderton Arena to be net zero carbon ready, and to help Middlesex Centre contribute to achieving Canada's net zero targets and continue to build a sustainable community. I'd like to thank you for taking this time to listen to my presentation and for allowing us to partner with you on this project. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I'll look to councillors for questions. I'll start with Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor to Rebecca. Thank you very much, Rebecca. It looks like there's a lot of interesting things we can do to the arena when it's built. So thank you very much for all that research.
Thank you.
Others? Well, I just want to comment on, I thought the report was really well researched, very well written. I'm a lay person and I found it interesting to read. I think you balanced the detail really well with the technical pieces. So I really appreciated that. And the other part that was really fascinating for me was the fact that the two primary examples that you gave, digging under and recycling a roof going down, and the other building, which was a retrofit. In both cases, even the approach to making a facility new involved recycling. So I found it interesting reading, and I really enjoyed that report. I mean, it was fun to read too. I think now our Director of Community Services would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, on behalf of Middlesex Centre, we just want to say thank you to Rebecca and her team. They were a joy to work with. We had a lot of fun touring them around the Wellness Centre and getting to know them and understanding this project. As you know, this project's is a long time away, but certainly some planning has started with respect to this project. We were very glad and appreciative that we were selected as part of this program to take part in and really help us understand those net zero capabilities that we can further research down the road as we dive further into this project. So we do feel this document won't be on the shelf by any means. It will be picked up and flipped through as we work through this project with various consultants and architects down the road. So incredible, valuable information for us as staff, and I think for council. So, thanks again, Rebecca, and to your team. You guys were great, and you put a lot of effort and work into this. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Scott. And yes, it was a pleasure working with you, and so happy we were able to partner with you on this project.
Okay, then if there are no other questions, we can now move to the adoption of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes here. There are the minutes of the council on May 4th at 6 p.m. as well as the meeting that was held in the morning at 9 a.m. If I could maybe have a mover. Yeah, I'm assuming. If I could have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Case, Councillor Heffernan, all in favor. We could do that again. All right, that is carried. Thank you. And moving on to the consent agenda, we have a number of items here, 9 of them. Does anybody want to pull anything for comment, discussion, questions? Yes, Councillor Heffernan.
Through you, Madam Mayor. 6.5, ATEL networks. Never heard of them. I just wondered, are they in our area or planning to come to? I'm not sure who to ask that question. Maybe Rob, if he's around.
Through the chair, yes, we will ask Rob to come forward and perhaps provide a little bit more detail than myself on this. But ATEL Networks is a telecommunications provider, and they do have some networks in this area. So similar to Quadro, Executive, or Rogers, they're another one of these telecommunication partners. I'm not sure of overall size, but they do have some infrastructure and are preparing to lay some more infrastructure in the area. And if certainly our director has anything to add to that, I'll turn it over to Rob now.
Good evening, Council. Through Madam Mayor to Councilor Heffernan. James covered it off really well. That's another small service provider. They are looking to enter the municipality. That's why we're entering into this agreement with them. I can get back to you with the exact location, but I think it's about 50 properties or something. It's quite a small initial introduction into the municipality.
Any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none then, the motion before us is that items 6.1 through 6.9 listed under the heading of consent agenda for May 18th, 2022 be adopted as recommended. Please, the seconder, Councillor Arts, Councillor Shipley, all in favor? Okay, and that is carried as well. Okay, moving on now to staff reports. We have item 7.1, which will be the CAO presenting the content. That is the official plan, comprehensive official plan review piece.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the Mayor to members of the Council, good evening. The report before you is the final report with respect to official plan amendment number 59. At the April 20th Council meeting, our consultant WSP provided the findings after a lengthy comprehensive review process. At that meeting, there were 5 amendments that Council put forward, and this report speaks to those 5 amendments, confirming the inclusion of those changes that Council requested. The plan was approved in principle, and so the purpose of this evening is to now finalize the plan with the inclusion of Council's changes. They range from policy changes to some changes to the schedules that are included in the final report for you. And at the report itself references where those changes have occurred. So that's basically the review for you. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Okay, we'll do the questions, I guess. We'll have Annalie Baruti. She's registered to speak on behalf of Sifton Properties. And then we can move to next steps. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
We can see you and hear you. And if you'd like to make your presentation, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My name is Annalie Baruti, and I'm a lawyer, and I represent Sifton Properties Limited. My client has been involved in this official plan review and update since the start of the process and has made multiple written and oral submissions to council. Tonight, Sifton is requesting that this item be deferred to allow for some additional time for a planning review of the most recent amendments that were made at the direction of council during the April 20th meeting. So I have filed a written submission on behalf of my client, which consists of a covering letter from my office, as well as a letter from Sifton Properties outlining the chronology of changes that have been made throughout the process and a letter from Altus Group, who has also been retained by my client to review this matter. So to very briefly summarize the concerns as set out in the written submissions, Sifton's first concern really centers around the apparent lack of planning review and recommendations that relate to the most recent amendments to OPA number 59 that were made at the direction of council during the meeting of April 20th. So with respect to Delaware, at the March 16th council meeting, staff and the consultant WSP recommended expanding the Delaware boundary on the east side of Carriage Road, which included Sifton's lands, and this included a total gross area of approximately 60 hectares. In this final, more recent version today, the residential lands south of Longwoods Road have been added, which to our knowledge doesn't seem to have been recommended or reviewed by the municipal consultant WSP. In Kamoka, the proposed location for residential growth was previously identified as the Fire Rock Golf Course with a total area of approximately 49 hectares. Council then directed an amendment to add residential lands to the south of Glendon Drive and east of Kamoka Road, which is reflected in the final version today. And the golf course is no longer within the settlement boundary area. The new boundary area expansion in the south is approximately 45 hectares. And again, here, we're not aware of the planning rationale for this change either. And meanwhile, Sifton's property at 9803 Glendon Drive continues to be left out of the settlement boundary. So in our view, these changes that were made through council's direction at the April 20th meeting are major changes. And there's no indication that WSP or staff have reviewed or recommended these changes or provided any advice to council in that regard. So in our view, without a proper planning review and without a transparent public record that really tracks the submissions that have been made to the municipality by all of the landowners and the municipal responses to those submissions, it's very difficult to evaluate whether the locations chosen by council for these settlement area expansions in the current version of OPA 59 are appropriate. The second concern that Sifton has relates to process. In our view, the municipality hasn't complied with the requirements of the provincial policy statement for a comprehensive review. The municipality hasn't undertaken an analysis to examine location options for settlement area expansion for residential uses in Delaware, which is a requirement of the PPS. And there also appears to be a lack of meaningful consideration for Sifton's submissions throughout the process. In the case of Delaware, WSP was originally supportive of including the lands on the east side of Carriage Road in the boundary expansion. And Sifton now has an interest in some of those lands. And council subsequently directed that those lands be removed from the new proposed boundary. Sifton in its April 20th submission requested the lands be added back in, which hasn't been done. And Sifton hasn't been provided with any formal response or planning rationale as to why these lands were removed from the original proposed boundary expansion and why other residential land has now been added in a different location. In relation to the Kamoka site, Sifton made two submissions requesting that its site at 9803 Glendon Drive be included in the boundary, and again, was never addressed formally by WSP or provided with a response as to why its proposed site couldn't be considered for inclusion. So in our view, there has been a lack of transparency and accountability in this process to date, and adoption of the amendment tonight would be premature in our view, and will likely result in more costs and time and process down the road. So again, Sifton is requesting that OPA number 59 be deferred so that a proper review of the most recent amendments can be carried out by the consultant, and so that these process concerns raised in the submission can be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Before we move on, then, if we could table the motion for discussion, please. And motion before us is that report CAO 16/2022 regarding the final updates to complete and adopt official plan amendment 59, comprehensive official plan review be received, and that bylaw 2022 number 51 to official plan amendment number 59 be approved, and further that the official plan amendment number 59 be adopted and submitted to the County of Middlesex for approval. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Heffernan. So at this point, I'll ask for questions or comments, observations, clarifications. We have either presenter of the staff report. I don't see any hands. Did you have a question or?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just not sure. I just realized in listening to the last person speak there that I thought that the fire rock part was in, and I see now that it's out. It was in, out, in, out. And so I just, okay.
Did you want to speak to that, Michael? Or comment?
Thanks, Mayor David. Through the chair to members of council, the schedule has been updated and it is removed, and the amendment that was put forward on the 20th last month was the inclusion of another property, and that's part of the schedule.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
I don't see any other hands. Okay, in that case, I'll call the vote then. All in favor of the motion as read? All in favor? And opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Now it'll go to county and then to the province for review and approval, and then we'll wait to see what happens. Okay, thank you for that. We can now move to the committee of adjustment. And the motion before us is that council adjourn its regular meeting at 6:34 p.m. in order to sit as a committee of adjustment under section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider the minor variance applications listed on the May 18th, 2022 council agenda. Members of the public who wish to receive further notification of any of the minor variance applications being considered today may send an email to the planning, to planning@middlesexcenter.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. And if you have any questions on the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. Members of the public that have requested to speak will have 10 minutes to address council and provide their comments on the applications. And in keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would like to remind any meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. So the order of proceedings is the same for each of the applications we're going to be hearing. First of all, I'll ask the planner on the file to explain the purpose of the application and hearing, and then to present their staff report. And then the applicant or their agent will have an opportunity to speak to the application. Members of the public who have registered will then be asked for their comments. I ask that you please state your name and address so that your comments can be reflected in the minutes. The municipal clerk will note additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. And then the committee will have a chance to ask questions of the applicant and or staff. And then finally, I will ask for motions regarding the applications. Okay, now 8.1 is our first file. Dan Fitzgerald is the planner who will give an overview of the planning report. Hello, Dan. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Mr. Thanks, Mayor and members of the committee. So the purpose and effect of this particular application for minor variance is to seek relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the minimum rear yard setback and maximum overall lot coverage in the urban residential first density exception UR1-28 zone. So in this case, the applicant is requesting a minimum rear yard setback for a covered deck of 4.75 meters, whereas 8 meters is required. And they're also requesting a maximum permissible lot coverage of 42.3%, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum lot coverage of 40% for the main structure on the lands. And the effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of a new single detached dwelling with an attached covered deck on the house. So the subject lands are located in the Bella Lago vacant land condominium on the south side of Glendon Drive in Kamoka. They are located, again, within a vacant land condominium, and the lot abuts single detached residence to the north, east, and west, and backs on to the existing gravel pit pond to the rear. The property is designated settlement area in the county official plan, residential in Middlesex Center's official plan, and it is zoned an urban residential first density exception UR 1-28 zone in the bylaw. We did not receive any comments from the public during circulation of the application, and no internal departments or agencies did express any objections to the proposal. And so as noted in the report, the applicant is requesting minor variance to permit the construction of a reduced rear yard setback for the covered deck, as well as an increase in lot coverage. Based on the size of the rear yard, the applicant is requesting minor variance to reduce the setback by 3.25 meters for the deck, while also requesting to increase the maximum coverage to 42.3% of the main structure. So staff note that the intent of the applicant is to construct a single detached dwelling on a vacant parcel. And in review of the request, planning staff note that the reduction to the rear yard setback and lot coverage generally would not negatively impact adjacent property owners. It also would not impact any abutting landowners to the rear, as there are no properties to the rear in this particular case. So as identified in the planning report, I am of the opinion that the proposal does meet the four tests of the Planning Act for a minor variance, as the proposal is generally meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. It's considered appropriate and desirable, and it is considered minor in nature. So given the above, I am recommending that the application be approved, subject to the condition that the reduction only apply to the rear covered deck and not any other habitable portion of the main dwelling. So thank you, and I'm certainly willing to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report, Dan. The applicant is not registered to speak, and no members of the public have requested to delegate. So, and the clerk has received no additional comments either. So I'll look to the committee. Are there questions? Councillor Heffernan.
To the mayor, to Dan. So with the minimum rear yard setback being substantially changed by about 10 feet, does that affect, like I noticed the property butts up against the pond. So is it still safe there?
Yeah, so through the chair to Councillor Heffernan, we did receive comment from Upper Thames with respect to the setback, because that is technically a regulated area to the back. They will require that the applicant submit for a Section 28 permit, but they did not express any concern about the reduction into that area. Based on that, I don't think there is any potential concern encroaching further into that area.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, I was just going to ask you if you would clarify Section 28 requirement there. I define it or clarify it for the public, perhaps.
Yeah, through the chair, absolutely. So in terms of properties that are regulated by our conservation authorities, Section 28 permit approval applies when you are constructing in an area that is regulated by that conservation authority. And what that does is ensure that any development that does occur there does not negatively impact that regulated area. So in this case, prior to issuance of a building permit, they will be required to get a permit from the conservation authority.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Is there, Councillor Arts and Councillor Cates.
Through you, excuse me, through your Madam Mayor, to Dan. The Bella Lago, we've had some issues here where people that are butting up to the pond decide to cut down the trees that aren't on their property. So I just, as an observation, it'd be nice if the applicant knew that once the property line stops, if there's a tree impeding their view of the pond, it's not their tree. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan, and good point, Councillor Arts. I just wanted to clarify, a bunch of what's going in the backyard is actually the covered deck. It's not the house is going further back there. It's more so the covered deck, correct?
Through the chair, yeah, that is correct. And the reason why the reduction to the rear yard is required is because it's attached to the main dwelling as a covered structure. If it wasn't attached and it wasn't covered, then they wouldn't require the variance.
Thank you, Dan.
Anyone else? Seeing no questions, the motion before us is that a minor variance application A-7 2022 filed by Claudio Abolio in order to establish a minimum rear yard setback for an attached covered deck of 4.75 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum rear yard setback of 8 meters, and to establish a maximum permissible lot coverage of 42.3%, whereas the zoning bylaw permits max 40. Should be 40? Yes.
It should
Yeah,
say
so it
40.
should be 40 and 42.3%. Yeah, sorry about that typo here. For a municipally known, a property municipally known as 253-9861 Glendon Drive be granted subject to the following conditions: that the minimum rear yard setback shall reduce to 4.75 meters, shall only apply to the deck as shown on the attached drawing, and that the remainder of the single detached dwelling shall maintain a minimum 8.0 meter setback as shown on the conceptual plan, site plan, and that the reasons for granting the minor variance application A-7 2022 are that the request complies with the general intent and purpose of Middlesex Center's official plan and zoning bylaw. The request is minor in nature, and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councillor Cates and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you for that, Dan. And the next file is yours as well. Okay, move on to number A8.
Through the chair, so the application before you tonight is minor variance application A8 2022, which seeks relief from the bylaw as it relates to the maximum permissible gross floor area for an accessory building that's located in the urban residential first density zone. So the applicant is requesting a maximum size for all accessory building on the lands of 61 square meters, or represented as 4% lot coverage, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 50 square meters or 3% lot coverage. And the effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of one additional accessory building as a pool house, while also maintaining an existing shed on the lands. So the subject property is located on the south side of Westbrook Crescent, northeast of the intersection at Westbrook and Blackburn in Kilworth. The property is an existing residential property with a frontage of 30.4 meters in an area of approximately 1,500 square meters. It is surrounded by residential development on all sides and designated settlement area in the county official plan, residential in Middlesex Center's official plan, and is zoned an urban residential first density exception UR1-3 zone in the bylaw. So as noted, the applicant is seeking relief from the bylaw as it relates to the maximum permissible size for accessory buildings on the lands. During circulation of the public notice, I did not receive any comments from the public and did not receive any objections from any internal or external agencies. Staff have reviewed the proposal against the Planning Act tests as noted in the planning report. Generally, I am of the opinion that the minor variance is capable of meeting the Planning Act tests and that the structure appears to be residential in nature. And for that reason, as noted in the report, I am recommending that the minor variance be approved, subject to the condition that is outlined in the report. Thank you, and I'm certainly willing to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to note that Mr. John Lowe, the applicant, is available virtually for questions, that no additional comments have been received by the clerk. I'll ask, are there any questions from the committee for either our planner or Mr. Lowe? I don't see any hands. So the motion before us is that minor variance application A8, 2022, filed by John Lowe, in order to permit a maximum overall size of 61 square meters or 4% lot coverage for all accessory buildings for a property municipally known as 43 Westwood Crescent be granted, subject to the following conditions: that the accessory building be constructed in the same general location as shown in the applicant's site plan attached to the report, and that the reasons for granting a minor variance application A-8 2022 is that the request complies with the general intended purpose of Middlesex Center's official plan and zoning bylaw. The request is minor in nature, and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property. Mover, please, in a second. Councillor Arts and Councillor Cates. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And Dan, your next file, A9, please.
Through the chair, so the purpose and effect of application for minor variance A9 2022 is to seek relief from the bylaw as it relates to the maximum permissible size for an accessory building located in the Hamlet residential first density zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for all accessory buildings on the lands of 93.3 square meters, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum size of 60 square meters or 3% lot coverage, whatever is lesser. And the effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of one new accessory building while also maintaining an existing accessory building on the lands used as a pool house. The subject property is on the east side of Salisbury Drive, south of the intersection of Salisbury Place and Salisbury Drive in Burr. It is an existing residential property with a frontage of 47.4 meters on York Street in an area of approximately 1 acre. It is surrounded by residential development on the east, south, and west, and an institutional use to the north. It's a designated settlement area in the Middlesex County official plan, Hamlet in Middlesex Center's official plan, and zoned Hamlet Residential First Density Zone, or HR1, in the zoning bylaw. As previously noted, the applicant is seeking relief from the bylaw as it relates to the maximum permissible gross floor area or size for an accessory building in the zone. During circulation of the public notice, staff did receive comments from the public noting objections to the size as well as the proposed location of the structure. Concerns were also listed regarding the proposed use of the building. So as noted in the report, also comments by internal staff didn't really offer any objections. However, I would note that Public Works and Engineering did provide a comment that the applicant was to confirm if there is no existing drainage swale that could be impacted by the placement of the structure as shown on the lands. So given the comment, a condition was added, which is stated as follows, that the applicant provide a grading plan to confirm no negative impact to swales prior to placement of the building to the satisfaction of the municipality's Director of Public Works and Engineering. I have reviewed the proposal against the Planning Act tests as noted in the planning report. Generally, I am of the opinion that the minor variance is capable of meeting the aforementioned tests and that the structure appears to be residential in nature and subordinate to the main use. For the reasons as noted in the report, I am recommending that the minor variance be approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll note that Mr. Ray Gibbons, the applicant, is in attendance and is available for questions. We have Kevin Bateman, a member of the public who is registered to speak to the application up next.
Kevin Bateman, 6 Glendon Street, Burr. I just had a couple of questions. Perhaps the planner, Mr. Fitzgerald, could answer. Will all setbacks be complied with?
Mr. Bateman, the purpose is to speak to the application here. It's, oh yes, include any comments or observations or feedback that you may have as opposed to clearing up planning questions now.
Okay. I was just referring to the letter I received. It did say there would be an opportunity for questions.
Through the chair, this is the opportunity for the delegate to provide comments and or ask questions. However, a member of staff will only address a question raised by a delegate if directed to by council. So as opposed to a back and forth question and answer session, this is an opportunity to provide comments and or ask questions. And if requested by a member of council, staff will address those comments or questions.
Okay.
The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay. My only questions would be to confirm that all setbacks are complied with. I think the planner has addressed my other concerns, and I'm happy to hear that there will be the swale will be looked into as well. So other than that, I have no other questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and we also have Fiona Bushby, a member of the public who's also registered to speak. Okay, the person is no longer on the line, so we're moving forward. Did you want to speak, sir? I wasn't sure. I know you registered to be available for questions, but do you have any comments?
So through the chair to Ray, to clarify, so our delegate's presentation has ended at this time, so we don't have them available to bring back for question and answers at this time. Certainly, if the delegate or anyone reaches out with questions regarding the swale, we can share those with yourself or staff and for follow-up. Thank you.
Okay, there were no additional comments that were received by the clerk. Are there questions from members of the committee? Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To Dan, I guess, just access to this rear garage, how are we getting through to it?
Through the chair to Councillor Shipley, that's it has not been identified on the plan how they are going to get access to the rear garage. However, I'm sure the applicant could provide or shed some light on that.
So I guess what brings up another question is where's the tile bed in that property? Thank you.
Is anyone else wanting to? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was just going to talk for a second about the setback. If he wasn't following the setbacks, he would have been applying for a setback change in here, just to address if Mr. Bateman is still listening. And I was going to ask about the use, but I think you've answered that. So is it like for old cars, like classic cars, or that kind of where they just go in? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you.
I don't see any more hands. Okay, and the motion before us then is that the minor variance application A-9 2022 filed by Ray Gibbons in order to establish a maximum size of 93.3 square meters for all accessory buildings, whereas Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw permits a maximum size of the lesser of 60 square meters of gross floor area or 3% lot coverage for a property known municipally as 114 Salisbury Drive be granted subject to the following condition: that the applicant provide a grading plan to confirm no negative impacts to swales prior to the placement of the building to the satisfaction of the municipality's Director of Public Works and Engineering, and that the reasons for granting the minor variance application A-9 2022 are that the request complies with the general intended purpose of the Middlesex Center Official Planning Zoning Bylaw. The request is minor in nature and the request represents appropriate development on the subject property. If I could have Hoover, please, in a second. Councillor Shipley and Councillor Cates, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Good luck with your project. All righty, number 8 pardon me, that's it for that. You have to now move into public meetings. So we need a motion that the Committee of Adjustment adjourn at 6:59 p.m. and Council resume the regular meeting. That Council move into public meetings at this time to pursuant to the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended to consider the applications listed on the May 18th, 2022 Council agenda. Mover, please. Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Arts, all in favor? That's carried. And to open the meeting, I just want to mention that members of the public that wish to receive further notification on any of the applications being considered tonight, to please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed in written material presented are a matter of public record. Those who have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 10 minutes to address council and provide comments on the applications. Again, in keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. Again, the order of proceedings is very similar. I'll ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing and to present their report. And then the applicant or their agent has an opportunity to speak to the application. The public will be asked for comments. Again, please ensure you state your name and address so that your comments can be properly reflected in the minutes. And council will then have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant and or staff. And then I will ask for motions regarding the applications. So I see Marion's already here. We're ready for zoning bylaw ZBA 05-2022. The floor is yours, Marion.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. This report is to provide information regarding a rezoning applications for the lands known as 108 St. Clair Avenue in Kamoka. And I will just share my screen so that everyone can see the location map. Okay, so the applicant proposes to rezone the land from the institutional zone to a new site-specific urban residential third density zone in order to permit an apartment building. The property is located on the south corner of St. Clair Avenue and Delaware Street and is approximately 1,200 square meters in size. The land is also surrounded by residential uses almost on all corners and is within proximity to an active railway, which is located about 40 meters to the north. So the applicant proposes to rezone the lands in order to convert the existing building, which is a former church, into a 3-unit apartment building. And this site-specific zone would address the permitted uses and as well recognize the existing building on the lot. So the applicant has also provided a site plan application which identifies some of the provisions that would be requested. So specifically, the applicant is requesting that the site-specific zone address the minimum lot frontage of 24 meters, and this would be off of St. Clair Avenue, a front yard setback of 4 meters, a side yard setback of 2.9 meters, and a rear yard setback of 8 meters. As well, the conversion of the building would result in the 3 units with 3 separate or independent entrances. So unit 1 is located on the north portion of the building where the main nave of the church would have been located. Unit 1 is also proposed to be a 3-bedroom unit with 2 stories. Units 2 and 3 are proposed to be located on the south side of the building and located on the main floor and bottom floor respectively. And these units would be 2-bedroom units. The applicant has also indicated that there is some exterior work that would be needed, such as the addition of an exterior door for the access to units 2 and 3, as well as like a stairs and deck to the entrance of the units. However, no extensions or expansions to the existing building are proposed. There is also existing parking on the eastern side of the property, which will be paved and further delineated. The applicant also proposes to remove the driveway access off of St. Clair Avenue and have the sole access to the development off of Delaware Street. Common amenity areas are located to the south and north of the building, and it's indicated on the site plan with the shading area in gray. Again, in support of the application, the applicant has applied for site plan approval, which is under review by staff. Generally, conversions and the reuse of buildings for intensification are supported by housing policies of the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and Middlesex Center official plan. However, and more specifically, staff just draw attention to the policies within the local official plan related to sensitive land uses in proximity to railway operations. So generally, residential proposals within 300 meters of an active railway must undertake further study, such as a noise impact analysis and a vibration analysis, and findings and recommendations from these reports would be included within the development proposal. So this could include increased setbacks, the addition of berms or fencing or enhanced building materials, or other measures that would reduce the impact from the railway to the residences. And the applicant has provided this material as part of their application, and it's also attached to the staff report. The application was also circulated to area residents and agencies in accordance with the Planning Act. At the time of writing my staff report, staff did not receive any comments. However, earlier this week, we did receive a letter from a resident who identified several concerns with the rezoning to an apartment building and their lack of support for the application. Concerns relate to noise from the proposed apartment units, traffic generation and location of the parking lot, privacy and direct view of the rear and side yards of abutting properties, the property value depreciation as a result of the apartments, tree maintenance on the subject lands, and the location of the deck and staircase in relation to the property line. And specifically, the deck and staircase is the entrances proposed on the south side of the building. Municipal staff do not provide comments at the time of writing this report. However, they are reviewing the site plan application and will provide detailed comments. And finally, Canadian National Railway did provide comments and identified concerns as mentioned because it is within proximity to the railway. They did provide some conditions such as including within the development agreement and notifying any leaseholders and as well as landowners that there is the railway within proximity and to address any concerns within the development itself. And as well, CN has requested to review the report submitted by the applicants and will provide further details with regards to the site plan application. So again, at this public meeting is intended to gather feedback from the public and comments from council, and staff will continue to work with the applicant to resolve any concerns before it is presented to council again with the recommendation at a later date. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Michael and Richard Tyson are in attendance virtually on behalf of the applicant to comment on the application. So we'll look to hear their comments next.
Hi, I'm Richard Tyson. I live at 53 Atkinson Court, Delaware. We just wanted to just basically say that we've done a few projects in Middlesex and Strathroy Caradoc. We own a building at in Mount Bridges, the former Oddfellows building. We take heritage pretty seriously, and we like to enhance that. We've done that with our building there. That's our intention with the church, is to maintain the character of it, where it'll be using the existing structure, obviously, and we plan to utilize some of the woodwork and or pews that we had from the church. These will be, quality units. It's not something that we want to, obviously quality units brings quality tenants. And in that case, I think, the concerns of who would be living there would be, shouldn't be a concern. It's easy, I guess, for me to say, but that's, we certainly take pride in the buildings that we have, and we certainly look after them. One of the things that we noted within a house that we own in Delaware, that in small communities, there aren't very many rentals. And when we went ahead to rent the small home that we have here that we extensively renovated prior to, we found that there was a lot of families who maybe had split up, marital breakdowns, I guess. And we ended up and were surprised with the number of people who wanted to stay in the area for their children and for the schools. And we see that there would be a great need in Komoka as well for this type of a property. There aren't many rentals that I'm really aware of in the area. So we're looking at a quality renovation. We're looking for, we'll be therefore looking for quality tenants. And I don't know if anything Mike wants to add to that, but I'll let him speak further.
Am I on?
You're on.
Yep. Yeah, I think he's kind of touched on everything there. Yeah.
Okay, in that case, then I want to check to see other members of the public. Okay, we'll just check on the raised hand.
So through the chair, I would just remind members of the public at this time that if there are any members of the public on the line who wish to comment on the application at this time, please use the raise hand feature to indicate that you'd like to do so, and we'll bring you onto the line. Thank you.
Am I able to speak just one other item I wanted to cover, if I may?
Through the chair, I can confirm we have one raised hand. That's Mr. Thyssen, who just spoke a moment ago. So I'll turn it over to you if you wish to hear further.
Sorry, what did you forget?
I just wanted, I know that a concern was brought up that we would maybe look to demolish the building. That's certainly far from any intention we would ever have. It would be cost prohibitive to begin with. So I just wanted to address that concern. I believe a councillor had mentioned that at some point.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I will now look to council. Questions, comments? I'll start with Councillor Arts, Councillor Heffernan, Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Tyson. that was my question, because we've been played before. We rezone something and then they decide to change the game plan. But after listening to you, I'm pretty confident in what you are trying to do. So thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Heffernan?
Mayor, I just want to make just a comment. I have seen a couple of churches before that have been renovated and I think sold as single family dwellings. And to me, they're really big. Like the interior is just so vast and high and everything. So I think this is a really good use of the property to make 3 rental units in it. And I definitely like the idea.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Case?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to, well, I have a couple comments and then I think I have some questions for Marion. So first of all, I do agree the good use to, I've been in there before. I live right around the corner and I was trying to figure out how you were getting 3 in there. So good on you for doing that. I absolutely agree that rentals are needed, and as you mentioned, the marriage breakdown, this is, there is no rentals, and this leaves a place for people to be able to stay in the community, and the kids still go to the same school, etc. But also for seniors, we have a vast array of people that need a rental. Again, good to hear no demolition. So I think that part of my more so questions for Marion, it's, we call it an apartment building. So one, I just want to clarify that I get it. We're saying it's an apartment building because it's 3 units, but I just want to make sure that it's not zoned in such a way that, in 5 years or whatever, they can rip it down and make a literally a building there, that the zoning is tight enough that it stays as this 3-unit dwelling.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cates. Yeah, I understand your concerns there, and I did discuss it earlier today with another councillor that we could limit the zoning enough to allow for a maximum number of units if that is primarily the concern, but keep the permitted uses as an apartment building or multiple unit dwelling, but the amount of units permitted on the property would be limited. So in the event that there is a future time where that building is removed, they would be limited to specific type of development.
So it would come back to council anyways.
Yeah, so if they do meet the zone standards, so if they meet like the building envelope, it would not necessarily need to come back to council, but there would be a new site plan agreement that would need to be registered.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I very detail read, because, as we all know, Komoka has 3 sets of railway. And so a lot of these things, including some right next door to my house that happened earlier in the year, subdividing, or in this case, the zoning change, etc., all involve the railway. And so as I, read every line of the report, I was wondering, I'm just a little bit not understanding totally. Has the railway already determined that it's this close, so they have to do this, or they're saying if it is, they have to do this? Because part of what I read said that they had to build a what are those sound fences on the property line. This is across the road from the railway. So it also talked about, which I understand for some houses near mine that had to have brick on all 4 sides. I read on there that it talked about the church needing to have brick on 3 of the 4 sides. And so I was wondering about some of this railway stuff and the criteria. Are they actually saying you have to do this, which would now mean, a whole reface of the church that they have talked about keeping the character of?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cates. The comments that were provided initially by CN Rail were general high-level comments that they would circulate to any municipality as a result of development within proximity to the railway. The applicant did provide the vibration and noise analysis, and that would be reviewed by CN Rail. So we will need to confirm what requirements are needed for that building, just to ensure that it does take into account noise and vibration. So it's not confirmed yet what is needed, or whether the windows may need to be removed or reglazed or whatever the case may be for at least the northern side of the property. So that will be confirmed through CN's review and as well as staff's review of the reports that were submitted.
Okay, thank you. That makes more sense to what I read, because it just, it was like it's not even on the same side of the road sharing a property line. I guess my only other thought, and we don't have all of our notes like we normally do, so I'm going in memory here. So on the very back of the church, the south side, there's going to be a deck for that rear entrance there. Are they asking for a lesser yard setback? I'm just thinking about the people that it would actually butt up to the back of the church, would butt up to the side of the neighbors. I'm just wondering if that's going to be pretty close to those neighbors.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cates. I'll just pull up the site plan and hopefully it's a little bit clear to see. So the deck that they are proposing, there's a larger one here and there's a smaller one here. So one would go to unit 2 and then the other would go to unit 3. And the setback from the building itself is about 7 meters on this end and 5 3/4 on the eastern side of it. So the proposed deck right now, this is not in compliance with the zoning bylaw. There are encroachment provisions for decks and uncovered patios. So that would need to be in compliance, or they would need to apply for a site-specific provision to accommodate that. So right now the deck looks to be about 3 meters in width. It could be reduced. We'd probably need to just take that back to the applicant and see what they'd be willing to do, and maybe match it to the deck that is proposed on this, the other entrance to the unit. But again, I'm pretty sure it could be reduced. I believe it just provides entrance directly into the unit, but doesn't serve as a recreational type of deck. But maybe the applicant can confirm that.
The other thing, now that I see the picture, I remember, I think that there actually is already some kind of a deck there, maybe it's a walkway deck. So in a sense, they might be just replacing the one that's there. So I'm not sure that if that may matter or not, but now I see the setback now, so I'm fine with that. Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Scott, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just the quick comment. I'm familiar with this company and I've seen a couple of their projects, one in Delaware and one in Mount Bridges, and can say that they definitely do a quality job. So I don't think there'll be any worries that way as far as worry about them stepping out or anything like that. So thank you.
Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor to Marion, I get the noise by the noise and all that with the railway trains if you're building a new structure, but basically you're renovating an existing structure. So why should there be any stipulation on it anyways? It's already there.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Arts. So essentially we're changing the use of the building, and when that is done, when you obtain, especially through the building code, change of use permit itself, it is still, changing the building to a residential use, which is a sensitive land use. And by that, by the proposed use, you would need to comply with the building code as well as any other standards. So including the noise and vibration analysis and due to proximity to the railway.
Thank you.
Anything else? I don't see any hands. We have a motion before us. That report, PLA Number 30, 2022, for the purposes of zoning bylaw amendment application, that is number 5-2022, filed by TTW Properties, Inc., to rezone the lands from institutional to a new site-specific urban residential third density zone for the land known municipally as 108 St. Clair Avenue, Municipality of Middlesex Center, be received for information. Mover, please. Councillor Heffernan, Councillor Cates. Favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you, Marion. We have Tim Williams coming to present with respect to the file by Andrew Douglas on behalf of 1917155 Ontario, Inc.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Council and to the clerk, I believe I will be presenting 9.2 and Tim Williams will be presenting the next file.
Oh. No, but Marion just said that Tim's. Okay, in any case, you are presenting, and that will be the one for Glendon and Crestview then?
No, sorry, for the Glendon, Crestview, the Kilworth West Heights block, that would be Tim Williams. Item 9.3.
Yeah, 9. Oh, okay, all right. Take it away, Marion.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through to Council. So this report is to provide Council with information regarding a rezoning application for 13178 Ilderton Road in Ilderton. And again, I will share my location map with Council. The applicant proposes to rezone the lands from the urban residential first density zone to a new site-specific urban residential third density zone to permit multiple unit dwellings in a new building. The property is located on the north side of Ilderton Road and east of Timberwalk Creek and west of King Street. The subject land is approximately 11,000 square feet in area, and residential uses exist to the east and west, as well as the Ilderton Arena is located to the west and north, and employment and industrial uses are located to the north. Further commercial and residential uses are do exist to the south side of Ilderton Road. So the applicant proposes to remove the existing single detached dwelling and erect a new building, which would accommodate 5 residential units. The site-specific zone would address the permitted uses as well as recognize the new building on the lot. So as you can see on the site plan before you, the current building is highlighted with the purple outline, and the proposed building is highlighted in the black outline. The site-specific provisions would address the minimum lot area, the lot frontage, front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, both to the east and west property line, and the maximum density for the site. As mentioned, the applicant proposes to create 5 residential units within this 2-story building. 2 main floor units are proposed to be accessible with exterior ramps from the parking area to the individual unit entrances. 2 units are also proposed on the 2nd floor with independent accesses from the main floor. And 1 unit is proposed in the basement floor. Additionally, the applicant has identified that the basement floor would also have some storage area that would be accessible by all residents. The parking area is located to the rear of the property abutting the arena. The applicant has proposed a total of 7 parking spaces, and this is inclusive of 2 accessible spaces. The area would also contain space for garbage storage, as well as a common amenity area. And all units in this development are proposed to be 2-bedroom units. The existing driveway access to the property off of Ilderton Road would remain and connect to the driveway along the eastern side of the property. The building is proposed to be located to the western side of the property, abutting the arena entrance and the cenotaph to increase the setbacks from the abutting residential uses that are located to the east. In support of this application, the applicant has also provided applied for site plan approval. As noted in the staff report, staff are working with the applicant to provide all necessary documents and reports for this application and will be under review. So generally, intensification and the diversity of housing stock within urban areas are supported by housing policies found within the provincial policy statement, county official plan, as well as Middlesex Centre official plan. However, staff draw attention to the village center designation that applies to this property. Planning staff did pre-consult with the applicant and note that the intent of the village center designation is to support economic development, tourism, as well as commercial development throughout this Main Street block of Ilderton. Staff did request that the front or main floor of the building be dedicated to provide some limited or low intensity commercial uses, such as a provincial office or any other compatible commercial uses with the surrounding residential area. And this is to adhere to the goals of the village center. And of course, this would also support any residential uses that could be located to the rear or above that commercial use. And staff continue to support this position to accommodate some commercial uses. However, it is recognized that residential uses may be permitted as long as they do not negatively disrupt the compact nature and commercial and service focus of the village center. The location and size of the land and proximity to compatible residential and community uses would also support some intensification. Further, and it's noted on the site plan itself, staff have recognized that the proposed number of parking spaces do not meet the zoning bylaw requirements. Staff have requested that a minimum of 8 parking spaces plus any visitor parking spaces as necessary be provided on site to accommodate all parking for this development to avoid any overflow parking into the arena parking lot, as well as any overflow parking along Ilderton Road, and it's not permitted directly in front of the property. So the application was circulated to area residents and agencies in accordance with the Planning Act. At the time of writing the staff report, staff did not receive any comments. However, staff did receive a letter from a resident who identified several concerns with the rezoning application, as well as the lack of privacy as a result of the proposed second floor balconies. Additionally, prior to this meeting, staff spoke to an area resident who also identified concerns with the 5-plex and increased density in the area. The resident identified that there are a number of traffic concerns along Ilderton Road, and it would create a hazard, an unsafe intersection where the driveway and Ilderton Road meet. The resident has also identified that the development should be located elsewhere, as Ilderton should have been a focus for large lot, low density type of development, and that a condominium would be preferred over low income housing. Finally, the proposed building's architecture stands out and is not respectful of the heritage properties in Ilderton and the immediate heritage properties that are located to the east and west of these lands. Municipal staff do not provide any comments at the time of writing this report. However, they will review the site plan application and will provide detailed comments through that process. Additionally, Public Works and Engineering have noted property boundary conflicts with the abutting municipal property. So staff are working with the applicants to address these issues. The county engineer has also noted that dedication for future road widening would be required along Ilderton Road, as well as the setbacks for the proposed building would need to be in compliance with the zoning bylaw. So again, this public meeting is to gather feedback and comments from the public and council, and staff will continue to work with applicants to resolve any concerns identified by council and provide a recommendation to council at a later date. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Andrew Douglas has registered to speak and is available now.
Can you hear me?
Excuse me. I'm sorry, timing is everything. Pardon me. Yes, we can hear you and see you. The floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mayor, and big thanks to the staff as well who've assisted with the project so far, specifically Marion, who's been a fabulous resource to me as I've navigated through the process. So As an Ilderton resident, I have a lot of passion for the village of Ilderton and feel that there's so much potential to develop the village in a way that retains the village charm while allowing for more diverse use. So there are currently very few rental properties in the village, and with the price of real estate, most middle or fixed income earners are unable to afford to live in Ilderton. There's also a limited number, if any, accessible units available to the aging population that may want to remain in the village area after their primary residence becomes too much of a burden. So my development proposes to provide accessible and affordable options needed in the village while maintaining the village charm that we currently enjoy. It is no taller than a standard 2-story home and maintains a mature tree line on both sides of the property for privacy. I'm very open to suggestions and very willing to work with the municipality or the public to make this project work for everyone. And I'd like to thank everybody for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you for that. I'll look to the clerk to see if anyone has raised their hand.
So through the chair, I would just note that if there are any additional members of the public attending the meeting virtually who would like to comment on this application, please use your raised hand feature now. Through the chair, I confirm no additional speakers at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, I'll look to council to ask questions. Councillor Cates, Councillor Cuthbert.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Douglas. I just want to say that this was an extremely well done report. I loved everything about what you said explaining. I agree wholeheartedly with all that you said about the need, and I also, although I know we just discussed our official plan tonight, I understand the commercial, the commercial lands that we're supposed to have, but I think that you have a brilliant use of 0.25 of approximately of an acre for what this will provide to people in the community. It's definitely is much needed. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Cates. Oh, sorry. Councillor Cates is done. Pardon me. I must have sneezed their excess.
Through the mayor to, I just want to make a comment. First of all, it is a heritage house. It's been very well kept up, and I think it has the original frame building on the outside. It's just been painted, but it's still. However, so I, on the one hand, it's too bad to lose one, but on the other hand, I think Mr. Douglas has an excellent idea here. Ilderton is very short on affordable housing, and in particular, for young families who are trying to move to the area or who grew up in the area, they can't afford the houses on the big lots. And so anyway, I think this is an excellent solution. And each of the units is 2 bedrooms, and it looks like they do have some outdoor amenities, but even so, there's a park coming up in Timberwalk, and there's a trail just down the road, on King Street, the trail there, the railroad trail. So I think it's an excellent location, and they're right downtown, that building was already there. So no, I think it's an excellent use of property, and I totally agree with Councillor Cates as well. Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands. We do have a motion before us. That report, PLA 29, 2022, for the purposes of zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 04-2022, filed by 1917155 Ontario Inc. to rezone the lands from urban residential first density to new site-specific urban residential third density zone for the land known municipally as 13178 Milverton Road be received for information. Could I have a mover, please, and a seconder? Councilor Heffernan and Deputy Mayor Brennan. That is carried. Okay, thank you for that. And moving on to 9.3. This is application for zoning bylaw amendment number 14-2020 filed by Carolyn Baker for Kilworth Heights West Limited for the lands at Glendon Drive and Crestview. Sorry, and Tim is there. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. It's nice to be back in front of you again. It's been a while, so thank you for having me to discuss this particular file this evening. And I will say that this is a rezoning application to rezone the property that is currently a C1 village commercial zoning. It would not be changing the zoning from the C1-15, but rather adjusting some of the details within that site-specific zoning. The site is located at or within Kilworth, and what I'd like to do is just share my screen for just 1 second to pull up the a location map to assist in this matter. So it's on the south side of Glendon, on the east side of Crestview Drive, so that would be the southeast corner. It's a larger property. It's 1.68 hectares, and for those of you that like acres, that's 4.16 acres in size. And based on that size, it actually has a third lot frontage on Doan Drive. You can see it in the location map, but you can also see that Doan Drive actually extends further than what's shown on this drawing. I just want to make that note. These are townhouses to the south on Doan Drive. Those townhouses are primarily constructed at this stage, but the map is just not quite as up to date as we would like. On the north side of the Glendon is a variety of different uses, including the institutional place of worship to the north, and then a variety of either residential properties or agricultural uses within the settlement area. So what on this application, I think what I would like to do is turn back time, not too far, but just to 2013, to say that this parcel of land is part of a plan of subdivision that was applied for in 2013. There was a rezoning at that time, and that process was being worked through until 2016. There was an appeal on the file. There was resolution on that. A settlement was arrived at between the parties. That was formalized in 2017. There were minutes of settlement. The site-specific zoning on this property, as well as the property on the opposite side of Crestview, they're both C1 zones, but they got specific site variations to the C1 zone to address the uniqueness of this corner and the uniqueness of those two properties as part of that settlement. So we fast forward to 2020, an application is made to for this property, the subject lands, that made a few changes or requested a few changes to the zoning, including addressing an issue about the buildings that front onto Glendon, the commercial buildings, and then reducing the parking requirement, but most importantly was asking for drive-throughs. That went to a public meeting. It came before you November of 2020. And I'm sure most of you remember that, but just in case you didn't, I thought I would note that. There were comments that were received at that time about concerns about the drive-through. The applicants took that away, considered their options, revised their plan, and so that the plan that was before you back before, I've now changed my screen to show that commercial proposal and that layout. It had an access on Doan Drive in the center of the block, another one on Crestview, and now this evening, and every time I try to move, I get a little bit of help from Zoom. Here we go. So now we have this site plan that's currently before council, which is commercial units along Glendon and wrapping around on Crestview, and then townhouses on the lower half of the property. Well, it's not exactly half, but it did result in approximately half of the commercial floor area being deleted from the plan, and these 3-story townhouses being added to the plan. There's 32 units. It's in 8 different blocks. There's a common driveway that runs through the residential townhouse block and connects to the commercial driveway and then out to Doan Drive. The second connection still exists on Crestview. So the previous plan had it in the center. Now it's moved to the one end. So specifically what is being asked for at this point is to add townhouse dwellings and street townhouse dwellings to the permitted uses within the village commercial zone category, the site specific that's on the property. And that also they would like to identify, because this would be coming forward as a vacant land condominium units, that there be some recognition in the zoning, because once you have a vacant land condominium, and if you don't make this adjustment, each individual lot is treated within the plan of condominium. It's treated as an individual lot, but that would create some issues on a zoning level. So they're asking for that not to occur. They're looking for that same requirement that I mentioned very quickly earlier about the fact that there is a requirement for the amount of building fronting onto Glendon. The requirement is 65%. It's not a minimum, it's not a maximum, it's just 65%. So if you're at 64, you're out of compliance. If you're at 66, you're out of compliance. The intent of that requirement was it to be a minimum of 65%. Somehow in the process of creating that settlement, that piece was missed. And so what they would be looking for is to add minimum into the term there. And that would allow them the flexibility to add any amount from 65 and up to, I guess, as much as 100% of the lot frontage along Glendon to have building front. And that's something that we are looking for in the village commercial designation, but also just generally along Glendon to have a good quality streetscape. They're also looking for some reduced yard setbacks and relief from setbacks and planting strips, residential parking requirements, dwelling unit densities, and outdoor amenity area in order to make the residential condominium as proposed work. Now, I would note that in the application, when it came forward, they had listed all of the uses that are in the C1 zone, and we took that. There was a mistake in that submission that didn't also include a convenience store, retail store, studio, tavern. And we had taken that, as staff had taken that to understand that they were looking to have those items removed from the permitted uses. So once the notice went out and our staff report came forward, they quickly noted to me that this was not what they were intending. And so what I would say to you is we'll call it revising the application, but we could also call it walking this back or no longer requesting this, albeit it sort of equates to a typo. But what I would say is we'll wait and see if there was somebody who was concerned about the removal of these items. I can speak to it further, but I'll leave it for now because I think it was highly technical in nature. I think the important thing to note is that the C1 zone doesn't envision standalone residential. So if this were to move down the road of being approved as an additional use, residential use to the zone category, we may need to look at some additional provisions to address setbacks, massing, and similar things. Because, as I say, the only type of residential that's considered here in a C1 zone is when you would have a commercial unit and then place a residential unit above. The village commercial is looking to have that, I'll call it traditional village Main Street feel and planned function. So if you're imagining that downtown type feel of a smaller settlement area, you've got retail or a restaurant at grade, and then maybe a unit or two of apartments above. That's the vision for this particular zone category. So if we were, and to a certain extent, the designation, the official plan designation as well. So if we were to look to do something else beyond that, we'd need to look at how we're handling the zoning. So with that, those are sort of the planning comments, but I will speak to, I will just say that the planning report goes into great detail about the planning policies and whatnot. But as I mentioned, the village center's OP designation speaks to encouraging residential that's located above that first floor. And as I said, the planned function nature of a village Main Street. And this is the last property. And as you move further west going towards Komoka, there's more of this village commercial designation. And if you move to the essentially to the right of this property and further east over to as far as Home Hardware, you're looking at a different commercial type designation. It's a different group of uses. They're more car focused. And I mention this because we'll come to comments from different departments, but also from the public shortly, and that'll be relevant. So we did receive some comments. The full details of those comments, I won't reread them. They're in the report, but the building department did make comments about the fact that there are some technical matters that will need to be addressed about additional barrier-free paths traveling through the commercial buildings and confirming the fire routes, turning radiuses, and alike. These are things that we'll want to make sure are addressed in zoning compliance and then further detailed during a site plan review. That application has yet to be filed, but that is because we'd want to sort out the use before we got too far down the line of dealing with the site plan. Fire chief had similar comments that would want to take a look at some of these items during site plan, during the site plan process. The county engineer didn't have any specific comments or concerns about the rezoning, but did want to address the fact that there is a concern about the proposed layout of the site and such the distance of the driveway access here in relationship to Glendon Drive. The engineer is aware about left-hand turn, right-hand turns that are happening here, and this is a controlled access, controlled by traffic light now. And so there is some concerns about the closeness of this access point to Glendon. So he has raised that item. We will, after this meeting, hear from the applicants in a wholesome sort of manner of how they would like to address some of these comments. But again, the county engineer said that any other items he would be able to address through site plan. So those are the comments that were received on a staff level. Since the planning report was issued, we did receive 4 comments from members of the public. And those comments were supportive of having residential on this side of Doan's Drive. Those that we received comments from were primarily along the south side of Doan Drive in the townhouses along the southern side, although one member of the public did have a couple of different properties in the area and was making comment more generally. So they were supportive of not having additional commercial. And I bring this up because this would be different commercial than, say, what's coming up and occurring further to the east, which is more, as I said earlier, auto related. Nonetheless, there was also a comment about traffic and busyness on Glendon Drive. And I think what I would note on that front is, and council is very much aware of this, that Glendon is a work in progress and one that the county continues to work on improvements to. I think the latest has been the traffic light. And I say latest, it's been a bit, but the traffic light at Crestview, but also continuing to work on the roundabout and other matters as that happens. Changes to the speeds along Glendon would also be occurring. And then with the development of this property, as well as the one to the west, this would also assist in getting sidewalks and other details addressed along these frontages to allow for better bicycle access and usage along Glendon Drive. So as I noted, these were letters of support to having residential on the southern portion of the property. But there was one note of support that did couch that support to say that they would only be supportive if it was with full parking requirements being met for both the residential and commercial requirements. You'll note that Doan Drive, even on this site plan, I could move it a little bit further in. There is what I'll call a lay-by of parking, and this was a part of a parking plan that was created when the townhouses on the southern side were developed. Because they are so narrow, there isn't an opportunity to have parking spaces on the south side of the street. So essentially, that parking plan was developed to ensure that there would be some street parking along Doan Drive. Now, I've done a lot of speaking, so I'm going to wrap it up now with just saying that this is, as noted, the second public meeting for this application. This is the way a good process would work, where there's dialogue that's occurred with the community, and the applicant took it back and made adjustments. We are now in front of you again. There may be additional comments that come tonight. The intent is to gather all of those comments. The applicant would hear them. We would hear them from a staff level, synthesize if there were changes to the plan that were minor and addressing those items. And a planning evaluation report would come back to council. If it's a significant change from what you're seeing tonight, that might constitute another public meeting. Hopefully not, but we'll see. What comes is what comes. I can say that the applicant is in attendance this evening, and they may have additional comments to bring forward. And I know that James will be handling that perfectly, but I only mention it because I know that I always want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak that I am aware of. So that's what I have. I'm here to answer any questions as we move forward, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. We do have Caroline Baker, or Caroline, I'm not sure it's Caroline, in attendance virtually on behalf of the applicant, and will be commenting on that also. There she is. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Oh, not a problem at all. I'm used to both versions, so certainly.
You prefer?
Caroline is the given name, but as again, used to both most of my life. So good evening to Mayor, members of council. My name is Caroline Baker from Baker Planning Group. Here on behalf this evening of the owner to provide some additional context and background information and some of the analysis that our group has prepared. If acceptable to the Mayor and Council, would it be possible, I have a brief PowerPoint presentation with some graphics. Would I be able to share that?
Yes, please.
Okay. If you don't mind letting me know when it's up on your screen, I'll hit play from start.
That's perfect.
You can see, oh, did it?
It went small again. We see your header and yeah. Oops, now it's gone.
Yeah, let me try that again on you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
We'll get there. Okay, so you let me know if it's up.
It's up in the smaller. There we go. I think that's
okay. Perfect. So as mentioned, I'm assisting the owner with these applications. On the call this evening, well, not a panelist, but certainly listening in is the owner and project manager, Jacob Katz, as well as Mary Lou Tanner, a registered professional planner with Niagara Planning Group. They were the co-authors to the report and have been very much involved for many years on this site. So just wanted to note that they are also on the call. I'd like to thank Mr. Williams for his thorough presentation, the history and detail that he provided to you this evening. I'll try not to repeat some of his historical context and site detail and try to build off of that with some additional context. So first, certainly, Mr. Williams provided a summary of the site, its size and location. Thought it would be helpful to add a few site photos, again, for context. The photo on the top is taken from Glendon Drive and Crestview, looking towards the site, certainly vacant right now. This, in my view, would be the prominent viewpoint at the intersection as both potential customers, businesses, and residents are entering this neighborhood. The two images on the south of the slide, certainly because these are recent construction and don't appear on the air photo. These are the townhouses that have been built on the south side of Doan Drive, completely residential in nature. You can see driveways and garages, as well as the municipal sidewalks. You did see the conceptual site plan a few moments ago. I thought I'd spend just a few more minutes talking about the design, its intent, and the connectivity. As mentioned, the commercial uses are proposed oriented to Glendon and Crestview. On this concept plan, there is approximately 25,000 square feet of commercial use. And Mr. Williams was correct. The intent of this site is not to provide a big box store, whether it be a hardware store, a large grocery store, home renovation. These are intended to be smaller commercial uses serving the neighborhood and the community at large. There is also 32 townhouses that would be provided in a condominium tenure that are located on the south side of the subject property. When the architects were looking at designing the site in its current layout, there was key attention paid to the vehicular access, pedestrian access, and overall connectivity, as well as landscaping and buffering between not only the proposed commercial to the proposed residential, but also the surrounding residential uses in the neighborhood. What you will see is sidewalks on all municipal frontages with a number of pedestrian connections that come in from Glendon, Crestview, and Doan, and then connect internally through the site in 3 different locations. So again, the intent is for the commercial to be highly accessible and walkable to not only, pardon me, the residential on the site, but the greater residential community. The architects, in working with the owners, also had an opportunity to prepare detailed renderings to assist in demonstrating what this development would look like, the architectural design framework. And what you'll see in the renderings on this particular page is focusing on the commercial uses towards Glendon Drive. You'll see they've added their goal, of course, would be wonderful to get a restaurant or cafe to the corner, where there could be outdoor amenity. And again, that active street frontage that is really trying to be achieved through that village center designation on the site. You'll also see on the bottom right hand, this would be a pedestrian thoroughfare connection from Glendon through to the neighborhood. Suggestion for impromptu outdoor patios and eating. So these would be pass-throughs as well as community gathering and communal spaces. The image on the bottom left shows the interface from the proposed commercial to the proposed residential on the site. The proposed residential units do have a small front yard proposed with a screened hedgerow to ensure privacy for that main floor residential component and screening to the proposed commercial. This next slide provides the renderings for the proposed residential uses. They are proposed to be 3 stories in height with a main floor, garage, and entrance. You go up to the 2nd floor for your living space and 3rd floor for sleeping space. Could accommodate up to 3 bedrooms per unit. The units have been designed to have active frontages to Doan and Crestview and screening the parking interior to the site with primary entrances to these units connected to the sidewalk. Again, the intent is to try and implement the vision in the OP of this walkable, integrated village center core area. On this slide, certainly this is the official plan map, which I'm sure everybody is quite familiar with. Mr. Williams had outlined the vision for the village center and the implementing C1 zone. And I just want to spend a little bit of time because in my opinion, this is sort of the crux of the application, is the nature in which we can achieve a village center and the nature in which we can provide a mix of uses. In my opinion, the village center is meant to be mixed use, being commercial and residential. Certainly there is a primary role for a commercial use, but the overall goal, similar to historical downtowns, is one that can provide both uses to create an efficient use of land and services, walkability and connectivity. And again, that pedestrian scale environment that serves the broader community. I think the key question really is, can those objectives be achieved through what I would refer to as a vertical integration of residential and commercial? And by that, I mean commercial at grade with residential above. Or can those same objectives that we look to establish as land use planners be achieved through what I would call a horizontal mixing? So you're achieving similar commercial square footage, similar number of residential units. It just happens to be in a horizontal form. Certainly in the planning policy regime, probably the last 10 or 15 years, the concept of mixed use buildings has certainly been a key trend. It's considered good land use planning and very desirable, been implemented across Southwestern Ontario in official plans and zoning bylaws. And really, again, to achieve those greater planning policy objectives. In the planning report submitted as part of the application, there was a demonstration that all of those key tenets or planning principles as to why we look for mixed use can be achieved, whether it's in a vertical or a horizontal framework and development. The owners also see that this horizontal mixing of the uses does provide some transition of use and type of built form, so height, parking, from the residential immediately on Doan Drive. What's unique in this circumstance is the existing residential units on Doan Drive face Doan and face the commercial site. And so in this regard, it would allow for that buffer and transition to the commercial. In discussions with the owner, they have been marketing the commercial component of this site for a number of years, including pre-pandemic times. I know we've had a bit of a shift in needs, both commercial and employment, as the world has changed the last 2 years. Certainly, they've been very honest that they have had some challenges in attracting significant interest in the commercial component of this development. And in their belief, adding the additional residential on the site brings further customers for these commercial uses, as well as that pedestrian small scale environment. The other component we looked at and sometimes overlooked is the actual building of these mixed use structures. When you have commercial at grade and residential above, there brings new requirements under the Ontario Building Code related to fire separation and noise mitigation. Now, on top of that, it is quite cost prohibitive to build just 1 or 2 stories of residential above a commercial, because once you are required to address those additional building components, you also have to address matters such as elevators and stairwells. And in today's market, 1 or 2 residential floors just doesn't financially make sense. And often that's why you'll see either commercial at grade with significantly taller buildings than 1 or 2 stories, or simply just the commercial at grade. I think that probably concludes my comments on the official plan. I do want to note, though, the owners are certainly committed to providing the commercial, maintaining commercial function on the site. Intent is not to take away commercial or remove the C1 zone, which I believe Mr. Williams also noted. So I just wanted to add that. But that would conclude my presentation. I might just leave the rendering, or I can stop share, whichever is council's wish.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. We do have a registered member of the public who's wanting to speak. I'll invite Mr. Paul Houghton to come on now.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, Paul Houghton, 200 Delaware Street, North Kamoka. Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council and staff. At the special council meeting on April 27th, I made the general comment that Middlesex Center needs to better control the zoning when it comes to developers focusing on meeting their own objectives at the expense of Middlesex Center community objectives. My comments tonight will be specific to the requested zoning change at Glendon and Crestview. I object to this zoning change. This is the second try by this developer to change zoning to support their business and financial interests, which is their right. However, they need to respect the 2017 zoning and develop the site within the existing bylaw and in the best interest of the community. It would appear that because the previously requested zoning changes were not approved, that they decided they would react to the issues tabled by attempting to convert half of this commercial property to residential. The size and scope of the requested zoning change seems to be way out of proportion to not being able to put in a drive-through. The developer's 54-page justification report to convince Middlesex Center to give up commercial for residential builds needs to be put in context with respect to all justification reports. With enough words, anything can be justified. The staff report is a much shorter justification report as to why no commercial property should be lost to residential on this site. If the developer wants to justify the need for more residential units in light of the over 500 new units in this area, that is fine, but they need to fulfill that need by putting residential on top of the commercial units. As we know, this is allowed within the existing zoning. This block is zoned correctly. It is at an intersection with traffic lights and was planned so that it would give the residential dwellings to the south a buffer from Glendon Drive and to bring much needed commercial property to the village center. This commercial zoning was in place from the start, and as such is no surprise to residents acquiring homes in the area. There should be little concern from the public as long as the zoning remains unchanged. Because the developer can't put a drive-through on this property, there's no reason to start replacing commercial property with residential. It is their land, but is our community and our zoning. An outcome from the process around the Kamoka Community Center being declared surplus was a reinforcement of how important commercial property is to Middlesex Center, especially in the area of the wellness/village center. What is most important in all of this is that no commercial space is lost to residential. This position should also be carried over to block 547 to the west. If the requested zoning changes are allowed, they will be precedent setting for the area. We cannot allow this to happen. I would encourage both council and staff to hold the line with the existing C1-15 zoning and turn down this amendment. Thank you to the planning staff for a thoughtful report and applying their expertise to keeping the existing zoning in place. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this topic.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Houghton. Just wait a minute to see if any public raises a hand
And through the chair, I can confirm there are no additional speakers at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to look to council now. Questions, comments, observations, input? I don't see any hands. Okay. Oh, Jane, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Cates.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. I'm a little torn on this one because I do agree that the commercial hectare is, is a bit of a precious thing that we have to be aware of. But I also understand the fire code, the elevator. I understand all that too. And just to think of the, if you have your, hair salon, dentist, whatever, your commercial there on the bottom, and you have an apartment on the top. The apartment on the top would be much different, that provide something different than what a townhouse would provide. I guess that's some of my thoughts. And again, maybe is it a rental up top versus a purchase of a townhouse? And with these being the way that they're designed, is it an answer to more affordable housing? So just a little bit of kind of some all over the map thoughts. And also the other thing, I that's a good point that Mr. Houghton made about, if you do it for one, then is everybody else going to want it? I understand along there that there's maybe supposed to be an apartment building. I haven't seen that plan for a long, long time. But on the other hand, too, to point out that if the half of, well, let's call it half, the south half of this was made residential, to keep in mind that it's all residential all to the east. There is no commercial right there and across the road. So, you could make the point that it would fit in right there. But again, is it at the expense of commercial? So just some all over the map thoughts there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we do have a motion before us. And that is that report PLA 31/2022 for, oh yeah, I'm reading the right one, just checking. For the purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA number 14/2020 filed by Kilworth Heights West to amend the site-specific village commercial exception 15 withhold zone for the lands described as block 231 of registered plan of subdivision 33M-761 be received for information. If I get a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Cates and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And that is received then. Thank you. Okay, moving now to number 9.4, and this is removing the holding symbol for Wellington Street. That's Marion's file. I see you're ready to go, Marion. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. So this report is to provide information regarding a request to remove a holding symbol, as well as seek direction from Council. So I will share my screen so you can see the location map. So the applicant proposes to remove the holding symbol or the H4 symbol from the property located in Delaware. The precondition to remove the holding symbol is to enter into a development agreement with the municipality, and that development agreement would be registered on the lands. This property is located on the north side of Wellington Street and east of Victoria Street, and is approximately 1.5 acres in area. The property is zoned, residential first tenancy exception 4, which permits single family residence as well as accessory uses. The applicant proposes to remove the holding symbol in order to construct one single detached dwelling on municipal water and private septic services. The applicant has indicated that the existing entrance along Wellington Street would be used as the driveway to this property. So I will note that this land is within the special policy area number 3, which permits limited development on municipal water and private septic services only on existing road right-of-ways, including Wellington Street, as well as Martin and Harris in the area. Further, any development should not preclude the efficient use of land should municipal servicing becomes available to all the lands within Delaware. The complementing holding symbol is applicable to the property as it does require that development agreement to be registered on the lands. The development agreement is in anticipation of multiple dwellings on the property when the full municipal servicing is available. Typically, the municipality would not enter into an agreement just for the development of one single family home. But at the time that this lot was created, the applicant at that time had concluded that up to 8 single-family homes could be built on this property once full municipal servicing was available, and that the entrance would act as a private roadway onto Wellington Street. And this is the type of development that staff would continue to want to see on these lands moving forward. However, staff recognize that special policy area number 3 may allow for some development where existing lots have frontage onto that public right-of-way. And similar development has occurred on other existing lots within this area. And as mentioned in my report, we have permitted some development on Harris Road as well as the subdivisions along Martin. So Public Works and Engineering staff have proposed a solution to consider the development of one single family home now without hindering any future development of the lands. Staffs have suggested that a development agreement can be entered into with the municipality to satisfy the 8 removal condition and to address that only one single family home can be permitted on partial servicing. When municipal sanitary services are available, the owner would be required to connect to full municipal servicing. Additional dwelling units on the property may only be permitted when full municipal servicing exists, and additional dwelling units on the property would only be permitted in accordance with the site plan identified in the development agreement, and also would be subject to site plan control. So the effect of the proposed development agreement would allow the whole to be partially removed from the lands, and when further development is proposed in the future when full municipal services are existing, they would be able to come to the municipality for further approval, such as site plan or a condominium, as the case may be. So the applicant has also provided a conceptual sketch or a site plan which identifies up to 7 residential units that could be accommodated on this property when it is fully built out on municipal servicing. If council is supportive of the direction to enter into a development agreement with the applicant, they would eventually provide the municipality with a more detailed site plan, and that would form part of the development agreement and be registered on title. As you can see on the conceptual site plan, the property that's highlighted rear or the north side, of the property is where the proposed single detached home would be built at first. And the applicant has indicated that a septic system would be located just to the side of that property. Again, when full municipal services exist and future development occurs on this land, up to 7 units would be able, 6 additional units would be provided on these lands. So again, this public meeting is to gather feedback and comments from public and from council related to the holding symbol, as well as seek direction from council related to the development agreement to be entered into with the landowner and the municipality. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. No one has registered to speak to this file, so I will look to council. Are there questions, comments for the planner? I don't see any. I have one. Oh, sorry. I see your hand, Councillor Scott. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, Madam Mayor, to Marion. So I know on the top of the hill there, we've got that special policy area 3, which includes a lot of lands at the top of the hill, hence why we've been trying to unleash them since 2008. So my question is if this happens with this land, can the next guy with the 27 acres beside him or down the road be able to do the same thing? You know what I mean? Create one house on the lot until we get sewers there. Because I think it seems like I'd be concerned with that happening more so, you know what I mean? It's going to be hard to plan this as it is. And I know it's going to give them an awful lot of restrictions, I think, just to put this plan in place to build one single home now. So anyway, I just was curious what your reply would be on that.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Scott. So it's definitely not the intention that we allow one single family home to be located on multiple properties throughout Delaware. This site is a little bit more unique compared to some of the other vacant properties. Given its size, it's certainly a lot smaller than the other development proposals. The other vacant land, where we have seen development proposals that are a lot more comprehensive and connecting to other vacant lands within that area. So the other unique piece to this parcel of land is that it's already pre-zoned for residential uses. However, the other lands are still existing use. They would still need to have a zoning bylaw amendment to permit any residential development on those lands. So I think to summarize, we wouldn't support something like that, but just given the size and the pre-zoning for this parcel, it's something that we could support to at least to see some development to help some one more family to be located on this property and within the community. But it was just a solution that we proposed at this time, just to accommodate the construction of one.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Could I have one more follow-up question, Madam Mayor?
Yep, go ahead.
So on Harris Road, I know we've had a couple parcels like this happen that were bigger, like 9 acres, if I recall, and 14 acres. I'm just not 100% sure. Were they part of the special policy area 3 or not?
Through Madam Mayor, to Councillor Scott. So they were part of special policy area 3. I believe even on the north side of Harris Road they were. The difference is that I believe on the north side they were zoned for community residential uses, but they did not necessarily have a holding symbol applied to them. So that's a slight difference between those properties and this one before you today.
Okay, yeah. So thank you. So they didn't have to enter into any kind of agreement if sewers come forward in the future in those cases, correct?
Correct. But in my discussions with staff, I believe that if municipal servicing does come available in the future, the municipality would likely establish a bylaw that would require municipal connection within that special policy area within all the lands of Delaware.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marian.
I was going to ask a question of you as well, Marian. The question also relates to servicing. When you were saying that the house would be built at the back in the middle and the servicing would, the septic would be to the one side. My assumption is then when municipal servicing becomes available, the whole property is then going to be municipally served and there will be no septic system on that property?
Yes, that is correct. There would be no private on-site servicing for that property.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands. Nope, no one's jumped on to speak to this. So we have a motion before us, and that is that report number PLA 32, 2022 related to the request by Steve Saker on behalf of Guy Riopelli and Broden Riopelli to remove the H4 holding symbol for the zoning of the land legally known as Plan 42 Part Lot 13, RP 33, R19 278 Parts 4, 8, and 10 be received for information, and that municipal staff be directed to draft a development agreement with Guy Riopelli and Broden Riopelli to permit limited development on both lands. If I could have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Scott and Councillor Cates. All in favor? Thank you. And now we can move to number 9.5, which is 15025 8 Mile Road. And I have Dan on this file. Okay, the floor is yours, Dan. Go ahead.
Through the chair, thanks, Madam Mayor and members of council. So the purpose of consent application B6/2022 before council tonight is with respect to a consent to sever a lot that's intended for a public utility use from an existing farm. So the proposed severance would create a lot with an approximate frontage of 26.5 meters on Highbury Ave North or County Road 23, and an area of approximately 610 square meters, while the retained would have a frontage of 576 meters on 8 Mile Road, and an area of approximately 100.75 acres. And the effect of the proposal would be to facilitate the creation of a new lot with the specific purpose of constructing a public utility, which is for rural high-speed internet installations. I will share that location map for everyone. As a whole, the property currently contains a single detached dwelling, various barns, as well as livestock buildings, as well as agricultural land in crop production. The property is surrounded by agricultural lands, as well as existing commercial uses on the corner of 8 Mile Road and Highbury Ave North. The lands are partially regulated as well by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. However, the lands as subject to this application do not fall within a regulated area. It is designated agricultural area according to the county official plan, agricultural according to Middlesex Center's official plan. And I would note that the land is currently split zoned and an agricultural A1 zone, as well as a highway commercial C2 zone by the zoning bylaw. As you can kind of see here on the location map, where it's showing C2 is the area, the big area on the corner there of 8 Mile Road and Highbury Ave North, with existing businesses that are established north of the notice of the application was circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with our Planning Act requirements. We did not receive any comments from the public or internal agencies with respect to the proposal. We did receive comment from the County Middlesex engineer that did note a dedication requirement on the parcel of 18 meters from center line of County Road 23 is required. And has been included as condition number 10 on the recommended consent conditions in the planning report. The provincial policy statement, being the PPS, county official plan, as well as the municipal official plan, generally do permit lot creation that supports the installation of public utility services and public utility corridors. Staff have reviewed their request to sever the 610 square meter parcel of land from the existing agricultural land. The intention in this case is in the severance is specifically for the intent or the installation of a public utility to support the installation of broadband internet services within the rural community. Middlesex County and Middlesex Center Council have both adopted strategic plans, which have specifically identified the expansion and access to broadband internet services as strategic priorities. Middlesex Center zoning bylaw notes that public utilities are a permitted use in all zones. However, the resulting zoning provisions are required to be met. In this case, the applicant will be required to apply for a minor variance as conditioned in the requested conditions. As the existing highway commercial zone on the lands would require a larger lot as well as larger frontage. And this would also be applicable to the future setbacks of any structures that are built on the lands. However, I would note that the reason for the variances as worked on with the applicant is strategically to reduce the size of the land necessary, which would limit the impact on the agricultural land. So what we're intending to do in this case is limit as much of the agricultural lands lost to the development of this specific site. So additionally, the remnant farmland would still meet the requirement of the minimum 40 hectare lot size, and it would not require any type of additional planning approval in this case. So planning staff is satisfied that the criteria of a severance of a strategic utility corridor have been met, or can be met appropriately through the conditions of consent included in the planning report. So given the above, I am recommending that the subject app can be approved, again, subject to those conditions that are outlined in the planning report. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions that council may have on this file. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the report, Dan. We have Ben Waghorn, who is here to speak on behalf of the owners of the property. Oh, yeah, I see your name, and there you are. The floor is yours if you'd like to make your comments. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
My apologies. Madam Mayor, council members and staff, I thank you for the opportunity. And there's been a great deal of cooperation in working this application. Great deal of assistance from Mr. Fitzgerald, and he's done a great job in summarizing the application and the reasons for it. So I'm not going to say more than the motion as drafted does at one point refer to B6/2021. So I just want to make sure procedurally we don't run into any issues. So in the very first sentence of the motion, it does refer to 2021 instead of 2022. Throughout the rest of the motion, it is 2022. So I'd just like to note that before the vote takes place. I will mention that it is Quadro Communications that is the potential purchaser and developer, as you'll see through the conditions that are attached. Certainly in the St. Mary's area and surrounding area, they are very well respected and provide excellent service to the communities, and will do so here as well. This location is very strategic and allows them to nicely provide services to Middlesex Center. And just from a timing perspective, it is we're under a bit of a time crunch in that the funding to do this expansion requires that this switch facility be installed before the end of this year. So I won't say any more because it appears that certainly from a planning perspective, there's a lot of support for the application, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has rather than speak any further to the matter.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll look to councillors. Any questions, comments? Don't see any hands, so the motion before us is that consent application B6/2022 filed by Ben Waghorn on behalf of Julie Armitage, Richard Armitage, and Amanda Armitage in order to sever a portion of land to accommodate a public utility from existing farm with an approximate frontage of 26.5 meters on Highbury Ave North, that is County Road 23, and an area of approximately 609.6 square meters and retained frontage of approximately 576.7 meters on 8 Mile Road, and an area of approximately 100.75 acres from a lot municipally known as 15205 8 Mile Road be granted, and that the consent B06/2022 be subject to the 11 conditions noted in the report recommendation, and further that the reasons for granting consent application B6/2022 include the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement. Proposal conforms to both the County of Middlesex and the Middlesex Centre official plans, and subject to the conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Centre comprehensive zoning bylaw. Could I have a mover, please, in a second? Councillor Arts and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. Okay, good night.
Thank you.
Now we can turn to correspondence. And we have 11 items. Is there anything anyone wants to comment on or speak to? I don't. Oh, sorry, Councillor Scott. Pardon me.
Yes, no worries at all. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did want to comment on the some of the letters in the petition came in for the sidewalks in Delaware, particularly on William Street and Tower Line. So anyway, I was hoping that I could maybe make a motion, or I'd like to make a motion that the expansion sidewalk on the west side of Springer Road from William to Tower Line Street. Oh, sorry, hang on. An expansion sidewalk on the north side of William Street from Highland Street to Tower Line Street, and the expansions on the sidewalk on the west side of Highland Street from William Street to Tower Line Street be deferred. Sorry, I didn't, that's a tongue twister for me here. And yes, I've spoken to the residents over there. They've done some polling, and there's many residents that do not want to have this done right now, and maybe not in the future anyway. And it's a very quiet area, it's subdivision. So there is some other work planned there that we could continue with. And anyway, if I could put that in motion, that would be what I'd like to do. If I can clarify that one more time, maybe, or did we understand it?
Okay, if we could have a seconder, please, Councillor Arts, and the clerk has the full wording of that motion.
Thank you, and through the chair. So what I heard was that we had a motion that was the expansion sidewalk on the north side of William Street from Highland Street to Tower Line Street, and the expansion of sidewalk on the west side of Highland Street from William Street to Tower Line Street, both of these being in Delaware, that the decision regarding sidewalks for these locations be deferred, meaning that the sidewalks as a whole and the recommended sidewalks be deferred to either a future time or, as noted by the councillor, not done at this time. Is that correct, Councillor Scott?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, James. That's exactly correct.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder. I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure, maybe Brad, maybe you know the answer to this. I'm just curious, before we have our vote, is that, you know, the sidewalk expansion program that Rob and his team are working on is, you know, a good part of it is to sort of infill where there's little missing sections. So I'm just curious, on this, is there no sidewalks at all in this area in there? So we're not, you know, providing a strip to, so that this sidewalk will then match up with that sidewalk. There's just none there at all now. That's what I'm curious about.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, I do know the answer. That's correct. There's no sidewalks on those streets at all. And the work that we will continue to do will be making a connection. And I see Rob's up there too. Maybe he wants to comment.
Yeah, good evening. So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Cates. So Councillor Scott is correct. So there is currently no sidewalk on William Street. But we will continue with the replacement of sidewalk on Tower Line, which is currently undersized to today's standards. So we would replace the existing sidewalk with sidewalk that will be compliant with the AODA standards. And we will complete a connection on Springer Street. So currently there is sidewalk on Springer, but it doesn't come all the way down to Tower Line. So we will complete that connection. So it will increase connectivity. We just won't expand into the streets that don't currently have any sidewalk at this time. They are lower volume streets. They're not through streets, and they don't have future connections to any adjacent property as well. So we were going to expand in that area because we were doing this work on Tower Line and Springer. And it made sense from an efficiency standpoint. But after hearing the residents and speaking to members of council, staff are okay deferring that work to a future time.
Thank you, Rob and Brad.
Okay, anyone else? In that case, I will call the vote now. All in favor of the motion is read. And that is carried. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Yeah. Yes, that's where we're at. So now we have the motion for our correspondence. If there weren't any additional items, no. Okay. So the motion before us is that correspondence items 11.1 through 11.11 be received as information. Mover, please. Councillor King, Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, now I believe, yes, we have our council update from May 10th. Deputy, the floor is yours.
Madam Mayor, first item up was AMO. Their board elections are taking place. Mayor DeVete sits on that board and wish to stay on as a county representative, and if that was agreed to. I don't know if she wants to do any talk about what the board responsibilities are. Feel free.
That board is, the AMO board is the one that has a memorandum of understanding with the provincial government. So there are meetings on a regular basis with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So that would be dealing with questions that municipalities deal with. Everything from our blue box, the producer responsibility piece is something that's being pushed through right now, and affordable housing, rural Ontario needs, that kind of thing. So it's a really great opportunity to pass on information and have input into some of the stuff that is important to everyone at a municipal level. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Most of the council meeting was talking about the county official plan update. In the next 25 years, they're expecting the county to grow from 96,000 or up to 96 to 115,000 residents. We're sitting at about 75 right now, I believe. There is a public meeting on May the 24th. I imagine it'll be a virtual meeting. Go ahead.
You need to register.
Yeah, if you want to.
By Friday.
Be part of it, you need to register. You can go to the county website, I would assume, and find out how to get registered for that if you're interested. They're talking about protecting agricultural land, housing. They're looking at going from 10,800 to 17,900 houses. New houses, that many new houses before 2046. They're reviewing the farm size. Right now it's 40 hectares. They're going to be looking at that to see if there's any flavor for reducing that as an official farm size from 40. They'll be looking at that. Reviewing surplus dwellings, 20 years old, if that's the standard they want to stay with or not. If we look at transportation, internet, employment options, development options. Some of the housing units they want to start looking at are townhouses, row houses, apartments, tiny houses, and additional residential units and backyards. So we'll be looking at all this through their official plan review, and I'm not sure it'll be coming back to county council sometime in the future, but there's the public meeting on May 24th. So if you want to see what's going on, please register for that. Other than that, that was about it for this meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that update. Any other business? Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to ask, do you have to register if you're going to watch?
No.
So it's the same as.
Wait a minute. Yeah, I just registered online, but I don't remember if it's different for people who are just. I'm not speaking. I'm attending. So I imagine. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm not positive.
It's okay.
I think you do have to register to attend.
Okay, thanks.
So no other business? Okay, then we have the bylaws. The bylaws tonight, the motion for the bylaws tonight is that bylaws 2022 number 50 through 2022 number 56 listed on our May 18th, 2022 council agenda be approved. If I could have a mover, please, and a second. Councillor Arts, all in favor? And that is passed. Thank you, everyone. And now we have to do the adjournment motion. So that motion is that council for the municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourns the May 18th, 2022 council meeting at 8:45 p.m. Councillors Cates, Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for coming tonight, our first guest of the year. First guest in 2 years. Resident party. So, yeah. You stayed for the whole thing.